Welcome to How to Break In and Earn Big as a Freelance Writer. And yeah, while we're introducing, everyone can feel free to say hi in the text box. You can't get rid of the ads on the right side. That's part of the thrill of Freebinar. We will be giving away some door prizes and answering questions later in the webinar in a couple of sessions.
I'm going to try again on this.
If we get to a question of yours, you can hit *6 to unmute yourself and be heard, but until then, we're going to stay quiet. And we're going to be making a special offer at the end of the webinar, so stay tuned for that. I'd like to introduce Ann Wayman. She's been freelancing for a long time. She's been published by Hazelden. She's edited newspapers and magazines. She's ghostwritten 2 bestsellers and has been writing on the internet since she was one of Match.com's first 30 or so employees. And she also coaches writing, and her blog is about freelance writing.
Oh. Carol is a longtime freelance writer. Her credits include Entrepreneur Magazine, BNet, Seattle Times, Seattle Magazine, Yahoo Hot Jobs, Copy Blogger, and others. Her corporate and clients include Costco, American Express, Dun & Bradstreet, and she was one of Right to Dun's top 10 bloggers for 2011 with her blog, makealivingwriting.com. She also mentors writers who are looking to grow their income. Carol?
So we're going to start with some tips for breaking in. I'm going to give some, and then Ann is going to give some, and then we are going to go to taking some questions. And my first tip is all about conquering fear. When we did some posts and asked people about what was holding them back from breaking into freelance writing, we heard just fear, 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 many people worried about things. So if there's something you fear about freelance writing, I want you to try to arrange to experience that fear. So for instance, if you're afraid of being laughed at, arrange for a group of your friends to come over and read one of your article drafts and then just completely laugh at it and rip it to shreds. And I say this because I used to do this at Songwriting Workshop long ago. And what you'll discover is this is a survivable experience. You'll live. And you'll realize that what you're afraid of is unlikely to really happen to you in real life. And, know that, everyone makes mistakes, and that every editor in America does not know every other editor in America. So there isn't some big conspiracy out there where, like, if you have one bum assignment, it's going to, ruin your entire freelance career. Try to keep a perspective. My joke is I try to remember that no matter how bad I screw up, a billion Chinese could care less. I have a post called 10 Ways Freelance Writers Can Banish Fear that has more strategies. If you're afraid, just one misstep. I found that new writers tend to think of freelance writing like a tightrope they're walking in, like if one trip and you fall off and that's it. But it's just not like that. All writers make mistakes. We all learn and grow and get better. And there's more inspiration about that on a post I wrote called How to Ruin Your Freelance Writing Career. And all these resources that Ann and I are referring to will be clickable links on the PDF report that you're going to get after this webinar. So my second tip is to enter contests as a way of breaking in. It's a great way to get in. You don't have to have any clips or know anybody. The writer's market has hundreds of contests listed. I won 2 early in my career, and both of them led to ongoing assignments with the publication that ran the contest. I think people think of contests as a way to earn a little prize money, but my experience is that they're a great way to meet editors and form long-running relationships. Within about 9 months of getting into freelancing, I was writing for a section of the LA Times because of a contest I entered that they ran. So it can be a real shortcut. I don't enter contests that have fees associated with them. I really look for ones that are by a publication I'd like to write for. My third tip is write for Patch. AOL's new online neighborhood papers are the community newspaper of the future. They're a great place to break into reporting. I have friends who've done this, who took like mill clips, and I have a friend who's making $2,000 a month writing for multiple patches in her major city market. Pay is only about 50 to 100 bucks for most stories, but I think what isn't well known is you can often resell those stories across other local patches and get additional fees. Contact your local patch editor or ask AOL if they might be starting a patch in your neighborhood, and you might be able to get in on the ground floor as an editor. They're not everywhere yet. They're kind of just getting going in a lot of markets. Another tip is to write for the alternative press. Alternative papers are always looking for writers because, they don't pay super great. There's a lot of turnover. It pays kind of similar to Patch. The clips are valuable. I got a very lucrative staff writing job off of alternative paper clips that I wrote. If you're involved in community events, or you like to go to restaurants, you like to go to city council meetings, you're active in any kind of civic organization, you can pitch the editor and ask if they have anyone covering that event. I developed a long-running relationship with one alternative paper after just calling them up and saying, hey, you got anybody going to that protest? And they said, no, why don't you, write 500 words about it? And I wrote for them for like years. So another tip is to write for local niche publications. And the one that I did, and it seems like the slideshow is not progressing, or maybe it's just me.
Oh, yeah, I'm reading. I'm sorry. Thanks. I am like, now I'm fascinated with what you're saying. And I forgot I was running this end of it.
That's okay.
We have a script, too.
So,
thanks
for
alerting me, Carol.
We were on Write for local niche publications. You can you find these by looking sort of beyond the newsstand, looking in those little boxes that are sometimes out on the street in big cities. One that I wrote for was called Today's Careers, and I wrote articles about, different careers in nursing. And there's actually a similar publication still around in LA called Working World, which pays $200 an article. So these can be nice sort of move-up markets if you're making really low pay. And another place where you can just kind of make a pitch and get hired often is pitching magazines or newsletters that are created by professional associations or organizations. At one point I wrote for my local library systems newspaper to get a few clips. Our regional library system sent out a paper. Just, read the publication, get familiar with it, and suggest similar topics that haven't recently been covered. Number 6 is network and meet editors in person. You may think that, editors are all hiding in their desks and they won't ever be seen in public where they could be bagged by freelance writers. But in fact, they get out and go to events and they're looking for writers. I've met wonderful editors at networking events. A lot of events are free to go to, but some are paid and worth it. I keep hearing that this annual event held by the Journalism and Women's Symposium, they hold a sort of weekend big slumber party event. I've heard that's a great place to meet national magazine editors. And personally, I'm considering going to SobCon, which is an exclusive event for bloggers, because I want to make more connections there. So, get out there, try different events, and see one that works for you, especially if you're good at pitching in person. I have some mentees who get all their assignments from like schmoozing people up and orally telling people their story ideas. So if you're someone who works well that way, pitch people. Number 7 is to write online content for small businesses. The internet is crowded with small businesses that need help making their websites look better. So many of them are in real bad shape. And it's so easy to find clients. Get a phone book, pick a category you're interested in, analyze all the websites of all the businesses in that category, find the ones that suck the most, call or email or send them a letter, however you like to market, and, tell them you looked at their site and here's what you learned and here's what, you think could be better. So make a suggestion or two and, do a few of them for just whatever you can get and then start raising your rates. Number 8 is write for nonprofits. Small nonprofits are always hard up for good writers willing to volunteer or work for cheap. And once you have a few clips, you can move up in the nonprofit world, and medium-sized and larger nonprofit foundations and organizations pay perfectly professional rates. There's sort of a myth out there that nonprofits don't pay anything, and that's true at the little tiny community organization level, but not even a medium-sized City United Way is, they need to present themselves very professionally, and they have a marketing budget. You can start with nonprofits you're personally active in, or you can find nonprofits on GuideStar or on Charity Navigator. And my last tip, I think, in this section is join a community. You don't have to slog along trying to figure out the freelance writing game all on your own. Seek out and connect with other writers in organizations that provide resources to help you ramp up your career. I feel like there's this mythology that, it's that lonely writer alone at a desk, but you just don't have to slog through it alone. You can join a local writers group. I personally recently joined NIWA, the National Association of Independent Writers and Editors. They have a library full of learning resources. I wanted to learn more about blogging, so I joined A-List Blogger Club. These groups provide so much support, so many answers to your questions in their forums. You feel less alone. You find the knowledge you need to move forward faster. Anne?
Thanks, Carol. And these are my tips for breaking in. Frankly, I think probably everyone who's here already knows how to break in. You found our websites, you've been reading market listings, and what's needed now is to crack through that fear and start submitting or start making calls. My favorite way of saying this is that there are 3 secrets to a successful freelance writing career. It's called write, rewrite, and market. And if you do those 3 things and keep at it and are persistent and willing to learn, you will soon have broken in and be on your way. One of the ways that I overcome fear, and believe me, even though I'm successful now, that doesn't mean I'm not, fear doesn't pop up, is a tool that I learned several years ago that we call bookending. I recognize when I'm afraid or resistant to, like doing the dishes or starting a new article. I call a friend and I tell her, usually it's a woman, I'm going to work on the dishes for 10 minutes, or I'm going to work on Maggie's article for 20 minutes. That puts a frame around the time. When I'm done, 20 minutes go by, I call back and I report that I did it, and if by some chance I allowed myself to get distracted, which happens, and I didn't do it, I call back in 20 minutes and then confess that I didn't do it. It works whether I talk to the person or just leave messages on their answering service. There are several people who do the same with me. There's something about creating accountability that kind of lets me sigh and get started. Once I'm started, things really usually roll. You can read more about bookending on my website. Just search on bookending. Know that writing is a learnable skill. When I read what I wrote years ago that was first published, it's kind of embarrassing because I do such a much better job now. I've learned along the way. So don't worry about it. You will learn. Take some classes. Work with a manuscripters workshop. Try your local community college or a writer's workshop. Read your work out loud. If you do that, your ear will hear what your eye can't see. Carol talked about writing for patch. The same thing is true with the small local newspapers. Often they're for free. Pay is small, $5 to $25, but you can get clips, and they're often online now. Here are the steps. Call the paper and find out the deadlines. Small newspapers are madhouses. Call the editor 2 days after her last deadline. It's usually a woman. Introduce yourself and offer 1 or 2 ideas. Be brief. She probably will give you an assignment, probably something other than what you suggested. Listen carefully. Ask any relevant questions. Ask if you should take pictures too, assuming you have the ability on a digital camera. Make sure you know the deadline and the word count, and then get off the phone and do what you need to do to get that article written on time, even the day before, and submit it. Then repeat. Repeat. And soon you'll have clips, and you'll also have learned a lot about the newspaper business and writing. Sometimes the editor will take a little time with you and tell you what you've done right and what you've done wrong. Cold call for clients. This drives people crazy, but it works. As Carol said, there are a jillion small businesses out there who don't know how to get the writing done. There are big businesses that don't know how to get the writing done, or they're in overwhelm, got too much to do. Calling is a great way to get clients and assignments from publications. With clients, potential clients, assemble a list of at least 50. And probably in an industry that you're more or less familiar with, you can start with a phone book. And the reason I picked 50 is because I want you to make 5 calls a day. Write a brief script. It should be something like, "Hi, my name's Ann Wayman. I'm a freelance writer, and I specialize in widgets. I know you do widgets. How can I help?" Once you make that pitch, then you shut up and listen. One of the secrets to selling face-to-face is to be quiet and make sure you hear what the potential client has to say. Be prepared to email samples or set up a meeting and where you take some samples. If you call 5 companies a day for a week, I'll bet you've got some work. You might even have some fun with it. You might not get the work until the last day, so don't give up too quickly. Cold calling can work. Another way to begin to break in is to offer guest posts to bloggers. We bloggers are always looking for guest posts. We don't want to do all the writing ourselves. Offer to guest posts on the blogs you like. Start with the smaller ones if that makes you comfortable, although you can always, fire off a letter or an email to the biggest blogger you know, and maybe they'll say yes. Do your best, submit it, and be open to editing. I get guest posts, some that need no editing and some that need a whole bunch. Guest posting is usually unpaid, but you will get article links, and if you've got a website or a blog of your own, you'll get a link back. And yes, you need your own website or blog if you're serious about freelance writing. And I don't mean a blog that you write every day like Carol and I do, or 3 times a week. I mean a blog that works as a website for you. Blog software makes website updating very easy. You won't be taken nearly as seriously if you don't have a writer's website these days. You want a website because that's where your potential customers are looking for you. You can read. I've got. If you search on my site that says why you need a website and how to set it up, you'll get a whole lot more information about it. It doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be complicated. If it starts getting expensive and starts getting complicated, you're doing it wrong. It's really fairly simple and will pay off in the long run or even the short run. This says stop reading and start writing. Stop reading my blog, stop reading Carol's, and write. Now, we obviously don't want you to stop reading our blog because what we have to say is important. But if you spend 2 or 3 hours a day reading blogs about writing, reading how to write, and not writing, you're not going to make any progress. The same is true about marketing. Read something about marketing, decide to do it, and see how it works. Nothing will happen until you write and until you market. As Carol said in the beginning, ask what's the worst that can happen. Probably that won't, whatever that is, the worst. If you write and keep at it and work at selling your writing, you will break in if you've got any talent at all. Door prizes. Carol, it's time for door prizes.
Awesome. I'm trying to research while you're talking to find out how to turn off that ding. It's really annoying, but
I'm sorry. I don't have a clue. Do you want me to look while you're awarding door prizes?
Yeah, go ahead and research that while we're doing Q&A. I'm not turning anything up immediately because at the end that's really going to get annoying as people
but how are you
out
going to
and we're trying to make special offers to people. Anyway, I'm
going
to give It's okay. I don't need the slide. You can go ahead and play around there.
Okay, cool. That's what I think.
So we looked through all of the questions that people left on the registration forms, and we're going to pick and give away a couple of door prizes here and at the break for How to Earn Big section. And I want to start with Janie Basile. Are you on? If you are, you can put *6, and then we can hear you.
Hi.
Hey, Janie. So
Hello.
Janie echoed the thoughts of several other people in writing, just kind of where do I begin? Just where to start. And my initial answer to that is maybe not that sophisticated, but it's somewhere. Start somewhere. Um, I meet a lot of people like this who are very overwhelmed by all of the options and all of the choices, and they want to know what are the shortcuts to make this work right and go faster. But I don't know any answer except that it's trial and error. If you're interested in an area of writing, you send some queries or you cold call some businesses and you see what kind of response you get from the universe. And you don't do it one time. You do it for months and you see if it's getting you anywhere. If it isn't, it's time to try another starting point. And that is my basic advice, but maybe you can expand, Janie, and tell us anything more specific.
No, that's good. Thank you.
Will that do you? And so, Janie, you get a choice of prizes. We had some of them up on there. You can, Anne has 3 different ebooks you can take a look at. There's our slide. I do my Make a Living Writing ebook. Also, something that everyone who participates in the webinars can get is I do a half-hour mini mentoring session, which is a $50 value. So you can think about it and email us later, or you can tell us now, but you've won a prize.
Okay, thank you. I'll think about it and let you know.
Okay.
Excellent. Bye-bye.
Sure. So the other one that I wanted to do for a door prize here comes from Yvette Hill. So Yvette, if you hit star 6, you'll be live. And I think if you hit star 6 again at the end of those, you go back off. Yvette, are you on?
Hello? I'm here.
Awesome.
Hello? I'm here.
Hi, Yvette. So Yvette wrote that her question was about having the confidence to approach editors with no clips. And I have kind of 2 answers to that. One is that you can create clips without ever having approached editors. You can write an article on your own blog and make it the kind of article that editor would find, well done, and make that a clip. You can, write for local businesses. You can write a sample. So there's ways to sort of create clips so you don't have nothing. And the other thing is to just go ahead and do it. I have actually had the experience of pitching an editor on the phone and having them say, hey, yeah, write that. And I went, well, don't you want to see like any clips from me or anything? And they said, no, I don't care. I love your idea. I'm sure you can, go. You get it. So do it. So, I think that freelance writers are more concerned about this sort of thing than editors are. If you write a killer query, you can get an assignment, as a newcomer. Everyone starts somewhere. Start with a lower rung magazine and make them a pitch. All they can do is say no.
That's true.
So how are we doing on time? It looks like we have time for maybe a couple more questions on breaking in, if people want to type them in the box. While we're typing, one other one I wanted to get to quickly was just that, and so Yvette, I forgot to say also, you've won a prize, so we'll be in touch later and you can make a choice of what you want. Lindsay Oberst said that she really likes creative writing, and I think this is a common thing. I'm really a creative writer, and can I be a freelance writer and write for pay for other people? And she said she likes to write about creativity and sustainability and green issues, and then about sort of charitable issues as well. And she wanted to know if it was possible to write about all of those things and, kind of make it as a freelancer. You can unmute if you're around, Lindsay, and say hi. And I want to say yes. I don't see why not. As I went over in my breaking in, nonprofits need writers. So I actually have a mentee who right now that's straight where she broke in. She actually has been doing charitable work full time for several years, and now she's writing, and she went right back and started writing. And green issues, the thing about a topic like green is to think about all of the places that touches. There's magazines on ecology, there's, and on sustainable practices, from consumer magazines like Real Simple to like industry magazines, and, for environmental engineers. There's architecture firms that are all about, green design, and they're always winning green building awards. Maybe you want to write for them. So there's many, many ways to me you could spin that out and find great clients and great people to look at. Anne, have you got a question here you want to take?
Let's see. I'll have to look at the screen. Give me a question, and I'll make up an answer.
There's so many. How to get more high-value clients. Claudine, we're going to get to that just after this break and talk all about moving up.
Do you want me to take that question, or do you want...
Take this question from Jan Hill, if you can see that. I like this question. Well, you look around, and I'll take the quick one from Ruth Cherry. She says, I've written for local and regional publications, but I haven't had to write queries for them, and I want to break into larger markets, but I don't want to mess up how I query them. And I did get several comments about query letters. And the thing to do when you don't know how to write a query letter is learn. If you can write really strong query letters, I just did a post on my blog that was called How I Got $6,000 of Assignments from One Query Letter. Query letters are a super powerful tool that can introduce you to a brand new editor you don't know from squat and get you really lucrative assignments. And query letters are kind of their own little style. They're their own little format. And you can learn it. It's totally learnable, and you can succeed at it. And if you haven't had to query before, read a great book. I always recommend my top 10 blogger tweet, Linda Formicelli's The Renegade Writer's Query Letters That Rock, or Lisa Collier-Cool's was like How to Write Irresistible Query Letters. Really just consider it a learning area and go out and learn how to do it. It's really worthwhile. And it'll give you a lot of confidence to do it. Anne, did you have a question you want to take here?
I've got Jan's question, Jan Hill, from someplace in one of the Dakotas. It keeps disappearing. As I understand your question, Jan, you've got your own blog, and you kind of set it up to show off your writing samples, and you're wondering what to write about, and you found a topic you like, and you're wondering if it's okay to switch. And I would, absolutely, put some samples up to that specialty. Develop that specialty. Even as Carol points out, you could do, if you don't have a paid sample or a published sample, you just put one up that you think's well written. And then when you are sending a query to an editor or talking to one on the phone, you can refer them to your blog and that link. And voila, there it is. Websites are incredibly flexible. Use them to your advantage. It can be highly creative. If you look around at writers' blogs, a lot of them are very boring, including mine. Mine, AnnWayman.com. I did that ages ago. It works so well for me, I'm scared to change it.
Mine is broken. Now it can be told. It's really messed up.
But you've got links to my work. You've got a couple of testimonials. You've got links to some ebooks of mine. I have some plans to redo it. And because I now know some things I need to change, so it'll happen eventually. But be bold. What can go wrong? Editor looks at the writing, and they're either going to like it or they're not. So I would say, don't hesitate don't hesitate at all. So it looks like, Carol, it's 1:30. Shall we move on to the rest?
Time to learn how to earn big.
All right, and there's Carol, earning big. Okay.
Go back to slideshow land so we get a nice big picture. So on to, now that we've thought about some ways to break in, to start getting some clips, on to how do you move up from there to where it really starts to be and I've thought about this a lot in looking at all the comments I got from people I did one post called Can Freelance Writers Still Earn Big, and all the things that were stopping people from earning more. And in thinking about it, I came to the conclusion that there are really some high-level ways that really good earning freelance writers think about their freelance writing business compared to how low earning writers think about their business. that I think make a really big difference in what they end up getting paid. And that's kind of what I'm going to talk about. And the first is to consistently market your business. High-earning writers have a marketing plan, and they do marketing activities on a regular, ongoing basis. They don't take a little stab at something. They consider it a normal part of their everyday, weekly lives. I once had a fascinating conversation I was describing a technique I use on LinkedIn to find clients, and I had a writer write me back and say, "Oh, I tried that once and it didn't work." And I said, "Oh, that's fascinating. I tried it 50 times until it worked." And that's the difference. In the past, and I also find that it's not one form of marketing, but multiple forms of marketing going on at once. You're not just sort of, once a month I go to a networking event or I look at the job boards, but that multiple things are happening. In the past year, I did a whole analysis of my marketing. I used LinkedIn and Twitter. I went to in-person networking events. I sent query letters. I worked on SEO for my website, and each of those strategies resulted in some new clients. Successful writers persist with a strategy, then they evaluate the results and adjust their marketing accordingly. What's not working, they get rid of, and they add some new things to try. And I have a post along these lines called The 7 Habits of Highly Paid Freelance Writers. The second is to aim to work on contract rather than one assignment at a time. Low-earning freelance writers send queries to many different publications, just kind of thinking about trying to score that one assignment. And high-earning writers target publications they think they could write a lot for and write a query that's trying to form an ongoing relationship with an editor. And a great way to do that is to pitch multiple story ideas, which is something I do all the time. And that says to the editor, I have a steady stream of ideas, not just one. I could solve a lot of problems for you. Because editors love to have that stable of go-to writers they can count on to crank out ideas for them. And that's where you want to be, is where every month that magazine's giving you an assignment, not where you get one and now you have to start all over, finding another magazine and getting one more assignment. So another tip is to look at specialty niches. There are many areas that pay well. Some I know are healthcare, insurance, finance, technology, nonprofits, writing textbooks. So look at what you know and think about developing at least one, if not more than one, expertise area that's in demand and pays well that you could have a specialty in, because that really, really changes your whole pay outlook. And if you don't think you have any specialized niche you could work in, I want you to think about it again, because you probably know something about something that would pay well. If you go to a chiropractor, or maybe you've had a relative had a serious disease, you have some healthcare experience. Maybe you know that terminology. Maybe you could write for a chiropractor's office or something. Maybe you've sued someone in small claims court, or you've worked as a legal secretary. You have legal experience. Think about your life experience and how you could use any specialized area you know about. So number 5, we touched on a little bit in Q&A, but I'm going to say it's not just write queries, but write lots of queries. So high-earning writers proactively are out there forming new relationships. They learn how to write really compelling queries, and then they send them out regularly. I find with new writers, they put a huge amount of effort into sending one query, and then they're going to wait 6 weeks and see what happens with that query. And high-earning writers don't do that. They're sending out several queries every week, moving forward, and not getting obsessed on what happens to a single query. I actually saw someone, I think in the registration comments, ask what my system is for, tracking my query activity. And here's my system. I send the query, and I never think about it again. If they call me and give me an assignment, that's awesome, and otherwise I've moved on with my life completely. I don't do any further thinking about it. And that, I think, makes a big difference when you're just all wrapped up in, oh, this idea is so perfect for this one magazine and I've just got to take it. It really stops you from sending more queries and generating more assignments. So number 6, negotiate your rates. I find that low-earning writers tend to snap at the first money number someone throws out at them, and I don't do that, and most high-earning writers I know don't do that. They negotiate. They do things like I try and get a prospect to name a price for me. I say, what's your budget? What have you been paying in the past? What were you thinking about charging for this? Or try to get them even to just name a range. And the other thing is to get a lot of information about what the project will entail before you agree to a price. So often a price sounds good, but then once you kind of get the full gist of, oh, they actually want you to interview their whole team, ghostwrite for them, do it in a week flat, you suddenly realize that you're not at the right rate. So I actually have a questionnaire I have clients fill out to try and nail them down and make them define their project before I say I'm doing it for this price. And it takes a little courage to just say, when someone says, oh, I'm paying, X for that, to say, oh, really? I thought it would be a little more. Especially since you're asking for it on a short timeline or it needs a lot of interviews or whatever. But that's what professionals are out doing. They're feeling out the prospects and finding out what they can get for the gig. Number 7 is target larger publications and businesses. A lot of writers kind of get stuck in a rut of writing for smaller circulation publications or small businesses, and they feel like that's what they're qualified to do. But the fact is, if you have a few clips, you're ready to pitch up and pitch bigger companies and bigger magazines. It's mostly a change of mindset. I find writers feel scared or unworthy of writing. They just kind of can't imagine themselves writing for a billion-dollar company or writing for, a million circulation magazine. But it's no different than writing for a small magazine or a small business. You listen to their needs, you do the research, you write it, you get feedback, you get editor rewrites, and you rewrite it until they're happy. And big clients and publications are really worth marketing to because they're a better source than smaller ones of ongoing assignments. That goes back to working on contract. So number 8 is to take rush work and for a premium. This one's on my mind because I actually had someone ask me today to write some rush work, but at a low price. And of course I said, no, you're confused, because the thing to remember is rush work should always pay more than your regular rates. Rush work comes at a premium. And if you can kind of cultivate a reputation as someone who can handle rush work, but for the right price, you can often get a lot of work. I have gotten thousands of dollars of additional revenue from doing rush work. And my final one is to manage multiple projects. To earn big, you cannot work on one gig kind of at a time. Each week, you're integrating a lot of different activities into your schedule. You're marketing to find new business. You're working on one story that's due Monday. You're maybe doing some interviews for one that's due Friday. You're doing some research for a query you want to send. And you need to be able to work that all into a week in a sustainable way where you don't get burned out. And I've never done this before, but I'm about to show you what one of my months looks like. And you can go ahead and flip that slide if you want. This is a spreadsheet with, obviously, the company names are taken off, and I guess the dates disappeared too. But these were all the assignments that I did in January for clients and what I earned. And you can see that there's a lot of different deadlines that happened here, and that some of these deadlines are actually multiple piece deadlines. They're multiple blog posts or multiple pages. And some of those deadlined on the same day even. So that gives you a sense of how many different balls you might need to be juggling to add up to a really substantial salary. Anne, tell us how to earn big.
All right, my tips are, first of all, I thought about the questions and comments we got and how much fear and insecurity there was, and decided that what I wanted to say to you is you've got to know you're awesome, because you are. You're working at this. You've managed to get to a webinar that's going to do you some good. If I could wave a magic wand, I'd give you all a huge dose of self-confidence. I can't do that. It's an inside job. Here are 2 techniques that I've used over time and still use to keep my self-worth in shape, if you will. I make gratitude lists. If you go Google or on my site, search on gratitude lists, you'll find both Thanksgivings. I've listed a lot of gratitude because I actually count them off on mala beads. There's something about being grateful, and it's for the little stuff. I cannot tell you how grateful I am for hot water, for running water, for clean water. There's 3 right there. But that for my clients, for the money I have, for the money I've spent, and the money that's coming in, that kind of attitude makes me feel better about myself and the world. It really helps me. It's a bit sappy. I know when people used to talk about gratitude lists, I turned up my nose until I tried it and discovered it worked. I've also learned most of the time to replace negative self-talk with at least neutral or even positive self-talk. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh, they did such a better job than I did, or they didn't like my writing, and I allow myself, a few minutes of that kind of whinging. I won't have any more of it because it doesn't get me anywhere, and it probably isn't true anyway. I know that I'm a good writer. I may not please you, but there are other clients. There's just no reason to be anything except my own best cheerleader. There's a wonderful classic book called As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. And yeah, that's not not gender neutral, but I think it's way more powerful than the attempt that was made to make it gender neutral. And I strongly suggest you read it maybe once a year. Submit to high-paying markets or raise your rates. Don't start at the bottom. You might sell to the bottom, but you know what? You might sell to the top, too, or you might sell to the mid-range. And it takes exactly as much effort to send a query or an article over the transom to a high-paying market as it does to a low-paying market. Now, there is some sense and sensibility in there. If the high-paying market is doing 2,000-word articles or 5,000-word articles, and you've written 1,000, that's probably not going to fly. No, it might. Depends. So dare to dream high. What's the worst that can happen? It gets rejected. Then you move on down or on up. Check out trade magazines. Carol's talked about writing for industry. I know those as trade magazines. They are magazines that are written for a particular trade, like the beauty trade or the solar panel trade or the internet provider trade or the, good heavens, the app trade. Chances are any job you had where you went to an office, there was a trade magazine associated. Any appointment you have with any professional, including your mechanic that keeps your car running, there are trade magazines associated with it. They are wide open for newcomers, and some of them pay surprisingly well, and that's a great place to get some training. I wonder what I meant by this. Landing one big-time credit will impress many editors. Have no idea how that got translated on the slide. Oh, a good. What I'm trying to say there is a good credit with a trade magazine will impress many consumer editors. That's what that means. So the trade magazines pay well and are good credit. You're in business for yourself, so track your money. And I don't mean just your income. I mean all your money. Know what you're spending. Know what you have in the bank. Know what's coming in and coming and going out. I find that if I'm clear about my money, my whole life is easier, including my writing. I don't have that nagging worry. I know whether the checks are going to clear. I know whether I need to earn more or less or just want to. Getting clear about your money is absolutely, in my opinion, critical to making it and keeping it. The same way, track your time. Learn how you're actually spending your time. When I track my time, I'm often really surprised. I can give you a very good guesstimate of what it will take me to do a piece of client work, whether it's ghostwriting a whole book or just doing an article. But if I've created a project for myself, I'm often way out of line. I don't understand it until I track it. So track your time, knowing how long it actually takes you to, whether it's do a blog entry or write a book or anything in between, gives you a much more secure way to do your negotiating, to know how much work you can handle, And you can also then begin to work at what you want to speed up or slow down. Might as well learn the basics of search engine optimization, because everything's on the web these days, almost everything. And even the stuff that we read in print is probably on the web someplace. And it's search engines that help other people find that work. And so learn a little bit about search engine optimization, know that it changes, and then when you know how to make an article, say, search engine friendly, and still be written well, that's a real art form that can earn you a ton of money over time. Also will bring in visitors to your website, so it helps you get clients. It's a bit of a magic and a bit of art. You don't want to get fanatical about it, but learn some search engine stuff. Develop a who can I help attitude. This is one of my favorite bloggers is Jonathan Fields, and he starts his day out by tweeting, "Who can I help today?" He challenged his readers to do the same thing, and I have accepted that challenge. You may know that if you follow my tweets. Like the gratitude list at the end of the evening, it makes me feel better, and when I feel better, my income goes up. When I feel better, I negotiate better. When I feel better, I write better. So it is, in spite of how you might think, it is an earning big tip. Now, what I charge, how much I charge by the hour, says absolutely nothing about what you should charge. What you charge per hour or per job says nothing about what I could charge. I get asked questions all the time. What's the going rate for? There are no standard fees. You'll hear people mention that there are. What they're telling you is that that's what they're used to paying, or that's what somebody told them they should pay. I can guarantee you that one of my favorite stories is a ghostwriter friend of mine who I know gets $40,000 or $50,000 a book, was talking to another ghostwriter who gets 3 times that amount. So there is no standard rate. You set your rate, figure out what you need, what you think you're worth, and move on up from there. Other writer, you are unique. Other writers don't have exactly your experience, your living expenses, or your ability to do what you do. Sometimes it can help to know the ranges, but setting our fees is up to each one of us individually. And this one I think is my last. Don't be afraid to turn down work. Good heavens. Know that every job that you're offered, you don't have to take. It's so tempting, particularly in the beginning, to take poorly paid work or work that's poorly defined. Poorly defined work is a killer. Or work from unreasonable person. The person who wants you to be available on instant messaging, 14 hours a day may not be the client you want to work with, regardless of how much they're paying. Carol loves rush work. I don't any longer. If you can do it and like it, great, it pays well, but don't be afraid to turn down the jobs. There are always more writing jobs. There are always more writing jobs out there. And I happen to believe that if you turn down the poorly paid writing work, it opens up the space for better paid. I recently turned down a book that they wanted done in less than half the time I knew it would take me to do a good job. I knew it would take me to do a good job, and for like a third of the pay I normally change. It's absolutely, the reverse of what Carol said. Now, they probably will find somebody who will do it for that rate. I think probably the product will suffer. So here are our photo credits, which you'll get to. We're there just to let you know we do photo credits. We honor copyrights. And now it's going to be back to Carol and more door prizes.
More
Carol?
prizes. I love to give away prizes. I just turned down somebody today. They wanted me to do some crazy rush work for $150 or something. I was like, I think you're not familiar with how rush rates work. Anyway, so I want to give out a couple of prizes with a couple of great questions about moving up. Janice Crago, hit *6 if you're around. She asked about overcoming her low confidence to cold call businesses to get clients, and I had a couple of thoughts about that, and hopefully we'll get more from Anne. Hi, Janice.
Hi.
So two initial thoughts about the first is practice with a friend. Call them up
Yeah.
and do it and practice it. And the other is, why do you think you have to cold call businesses? I actually personally have never done cold calling, and I go on with my successful freelance career.
Yeah.
I had this telemarketing job once, so I just think I do not like selling that way. I send query letters, I send emails, I use social media, I go to in-person events. So to me, there's no obligation to use any one particular marketing strategy. Like I said, I have a mentee who he does all of his in pitching live, talking to somebody in person. You know,
Right.
Everyone has their own strategy. So if that strategy like gives you a complex, don't feel like you have to do that marketing strategy. There's like 39. Ann and I, our last webinar was 40 ways to market your business. There's other ways. Ann, you got some other?
Yeah, I would echo.
I know that
I
don't like getting cold called, so I feel like, why should I do what I don't like getting?
Just be sure. Remember, most of the cold calling that I suggest and have done myself has been to businesses.
Right.
It's been during working hours, and I'm looking. I know that there are companies out there that need the writing skills that I have, and they don't know how to find me. I call, and usually I end up initially talking to the receptionist, but I have never done a series of calling 5 companies a day for a full 5 days without having at least a meeting that looked good, and I would guess 90% of the time it's an assignment. But yeah, Carol's right. You don't have to cold call. It's funny because I did some telemarketing at one point and I hated it. But when I'm calling about writing, because I'm confident there, because I know I can do a service, it's actually kind of fun. And so it's optional. There are at least 39 other ways to do it. If you do decide to call, I suggest you stand up when you call. Make sure you know what you want to say. And the real key is always listening. Always listening. Get them to talk, and they will tell you what they need. So, you don't have to cold call. Carol's absolutely right, except it works.
Yeah, I've never talked to anyone who has done any substantial cold calling who did not get a client. It seems like it's a very reliable way to get clients. Our other door prize person, so we'll send all of you door prize winners an email with all the options, and you can tell us what you pick later on after the broadcast.
Thank you.
Linda Abbott, if you're on, you can unmute yourself with *6. She was not the only person to write in and say, I only have blog samples. My samples are basically, hi Linda, are basically my blog. So can I use those to pitch online clients and pitch offline clients? And very certainly you can use them to get jobs online. I know I did. I got blogging gigs off of my blog. That's how I got all the business clients. All the business blogging and paid blogging I have strung out of writing my own little blog and saying, oh, I know how to blog. Did you need a blogger? To people, it's, absolutely they're good for that. Offline clients, you can certainly give it a whirl. And like we said earlier, start writing your blog posts like fully reported stories. Make them into samples that would work for a magazine quality publication and use them. That's the thrill of blogs. You can make your blog as complicated or simple as you want. Write a 1,200-word feature article and post it on your blog and use it as a sample.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, go ahead.
I have interviews I've done in my field, in the niche that I'm in, which is caregiving, interviews with different types of caregivers. Would that be a good sample to submit for something like a case study or a white paper?
Let me turn that question around.
Sure.
And I want everybody to hear this. Why in the world would you hesitate to use those? Why in the world wouldn't you use what you've already done?
Yeah, what's holding you back from using those?
What's holding you back? What's the fear there? This is what I mean by you know how to do this.
They're not good enough.
Says who? How are you judging that?
I don't know, because I haven't tried.
I thought that sounded like a tasty idea for a blog post. A Q&A style interview with a caregiver. That sounds great. I don't know what's wrong with it.
See, that's what I when I say you're awesome, you need to know you're awesome, and that you already know how to break in, and that it's stepping out and doing it. None of us Neither Carol nor I were born knowing how to write articles, how to market, or how to blog. We were not born knowing those things. We've learned.
No kidding.
No kidding.
Flip this slide to the special offer before 500 dings hit us here, because I want to make sure that people know that our next that our next webinar is Secrets of a Money-Making Blog. We're going to talk about all the ways you can earn money from your blog. It's going to be in April. And we're going to send you, when we send you your PDF report that has all of our tips in it that you just heard, we will be sending you a special price offer for early registration on that for only people who participated in this webinar. So maybe we could do one more quick question. I don't know if there's something. Oh, Rose McNeil, I've seen so many of your things. So she says, what if I have samples, but I don't want to stay in that market and I want to venture out? Rose, can you come on? I'm assuming you mean like that industry or that topic, or do you mean that geographic market? Rose?
It would be, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so it would be in that specific market that I write in. So it's technical writing.
And so you're looking to get into other niches. So you need to find ways to create samples in those other niches, maybe on your blog.
Or queries.
Like we were just talking about. Or as a volunteer for a small business or a publication.
Or send queries. Queries,
yeah.
If you want to write about... If you want to write about classical harp music, then you find the Classical Harp Music magazine and write queries to them, or do an over-the-transom submission. The fact that you are published is good news to any editor because they know you can produce. So it's you're ahead of the game. But
you can also always find ways to sort of leverage your way out of the topic you've been in and write. Maybe you've been writing a lot about real estate, and then you write a story about real estate for a consumer magazine, and then you turn around, and now that you're in at the consumer magazine, you say, I'd really love to write you a story about, 10 health tips. And now they've gotten to know you, and they know you can write competently, and they say, sure, do that. And then you can branch that way. Just another thought.
Some good ideas. Thank you.
I think we're at the end of our time.
I think so.
When you exit this, take the survey and leave us questions because we answer them on the blog and we respond on email sometimes and stuff. So please do leave us feedback, and if you had questions that didn't get answered, leave them in the survey.
Thanks so much, you guys, for being here. We really enjoyed talking with you and getting to know you a little bit, and we look forward to meeting you more on our various blogs and around the Internet and what have you. Carol, thanks so much for your help, too.
Same here. Really appreciated all the participation. Thanks a lot, all.